Welcome back, and thank you all for your patience. Welcome to another week of The Vantage Point. We're getting a little late start, but I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Here on The Vantage Point, as you all know, we like to inspire newbie Melanites all across the globe to see their lives and see the world from a different vantage point. A vantage point that propels them towards awakening and liberation through action. Because although we may know, although we may learn, we must take action on those things that we do learn. So we bring in speakers from all across the world, different backgrounds, different walks of life, to help provide the tools necessary in this everyday fight for liberation against racism, white supremacy, and the likes. So today's topic, we're talking about Black boys in this world. And this topic is especially just personal for me, because for me, I'm speaking today as a mother. And as a mother, I'm a mother of two. For those who don't know, I have a 4-year-old girl and I have a 12-year-old boy. And sometimes when I look at him and being an aunt to many boys, and just being a godmom to boys, and just seeing what they're faced with every day, it's a little concerning. And I want us to kind of address what it is to be a Black boy in today's world. Because if these young boys don't grow up knowing who they are, they will never, ever be able to truly grow into manhood properly. These young boys are our fathers of tomorrow. They're our uncles of tomorrow. They're our future. And so we have to pour into them, as they will lead the way in many years to come. So today, this conversation is necessary. It's heartfelt. It's personal. It's just a conversation that I'm pretty sure anyone who's a mother can relate to. Anybody who's a parent can relate to. And so we have some guests with us today that I would like to bring to the stage. And welcome back to the Vantage Point. And we have with us today Elder Owen Burroughs, which I'll be bringing to the stage. Owen Burroughs, it's been a while since we've seen you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I just want to say, continue doing a great job with your platform. It really brings a lot of great content that our people need to hear. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to bring on our Cajun uncle, Dr. Cleveland Ennis III, as well as Dr. Nicole Ford and Reverend Dr. AJ Varma. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We have, fathers on the screen. And so I know, and Dr. Cleveland Ennis III, he is the Dean of Students at a Kefren International Academy. So he deals with children every day. And so I know he's very good to speak with this. Dr. Ford is a conscious counselor. So she deals with a lot of the traumas and a lot of the things that people who have children are faced with. And we have Owen Burroughs, who's a father, who's a motivational speaker, who's a part of the Doctors Speak. And we all know, if you haven't heard, if you don't know, Reverend Dr. AJ Varma, he's the head of the Holy Coptic Church. He's the Coptic Pope of today. He is our Master. He's our Master, and I'm always very grateful for your time. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope you were able to kind of get a gist of where this conversation is going, where we're headed. I look at these young boys today, and it concerns me a little that they're not aware of their identity. And so it's hard for them to move and maneuver with a sense of urgency, with a sense of just knowing what it is that they need to do to properly navigate this world and navigate these circumstances. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to kind of move around, but I would like to just have a conversation and not just speak to the Black boys of today's world, but also to the parents, because these are the parents that are raising these Black boys. Some of the things that I hear, the young boys saying, my son particularly, sometimes they go to school and they're not enthusiastic about the learning system. This is boring, or this teacher, she has it out for me. She's racist. She doesn't like me. And, all of these different things they come home saying every day. And so I'm faced with a problem. So I want to kind of, first off, Kahun Uncle, Dr. Cleveland Ennis III, with what you see at a Kefren. I don't know if it's a little different because you actually have a culture, a centered way of approaching learning. So if you can kind of speak to your experience with the young boys where you are, and then we can kind of see if it's the same as what we're looking at here.
Right. Well, namastu to you and everybody listening. It's great to be here. I'm actually still at a Catherine right now as we speak. I haven't left yet for the day. Even though we do have an Afrocentric feel and approach to education here at a Catherine, we still have to submit to the Ministry of Education and even the social norms of our society and of the globe, quite frankly. What we're doing here at a Catherine is a start, and it helps us to at least put some images and put some ideas and begin to put a curriculum in front of these young men and women so that we at least seed them with some of the ideas and with some of the concepts or precepts that we pray will manifest when they ultimately have the power to make even more changes. There's things that we're able to do now, and we're grateful, but we know we can't do everything in this one generation. This is a big step to have an Afrocentric school in any part of the world, really. But here in Bahamas, we face the same challenges that schools and families face all over the globe. What I'm seeing here at Catherine, I'm sure is no different than what other teachers are seeing in different parts of the world. The children get to a certain age, and it feels as if you begin to lose them at some point if there aren't things in place, some fail safes to assist them with some of the changes or challenges rather, that they're going to ultimately encounter, especially when it comes to trying to find an identity. Pop culture is global. So when you see the types of the way they dress, the way they speak, the way they interpret relationships, the way they interpret friendships, the way they interpret what's cool from what's not cool, the way they interpret value, what is valuable, what isn't valuable. The system of racism, white supremacy has done such an awesome job of being ubiquitous. It's everywhere, right? And the minute you stop paying attention, and when I say stop paying attention, I don't mean as a parent, we always think we are on top of everything, but that moment that they could just look down at the phone and just you driving in the car and you paying attention to the road and they got the headphones on and they just looking at the phone. That moment right there can grab them and take them off into another tangent. And that's just one example. But what we're seeing here at Catherine is, you know, a lot of children are coming with so much baggage from home and a lot of psychological hurt and pain. Not even just the children, adults, the parents that come in here are coming in with so much psychological pain and damage that you have to navigate those things to ultimately even get to them seeing that, hey, you're in an Afrocentric school. You can love your nose, you can love your hair, you can learn about your great ancestors. Some of them, it takes a while for them to even hear that, because this is just a safe space for them to come and be able just to eat lunch, just to not get touched at home, just to not get beat up. You understand what I'm saying? So there's so many layers of pain in many of them. And then you have your high flyers. You have some that take it, eat it up, and they run with it. And they're doing excellent. I just had a student last month. He graduated a few years ago. He was on the BBC. He's a world-renowned chef. I taught him right in this exact classroom I'm sitting in right now. Right? He was on BBC. So you got, you know, you have that spectrum of those who are really in pain and really, really hurting. And then you got the high flyers. And so today's show, you know, I pray that we'll begin to unravel, you know, some of that pain and some of that, the hurt and how to deal with it, because it's everywhere.
Yes. Thank you. And what I would like to look at in unraveling it is what is missing, right? When they enter these spaces, we have people that may be bringing baggage from home and dealing with the hurt, as you mentioned, but then you may have the opposite to that. And you may have children that are being raised a certain way with a certain level of consciousness, a certain level of intellect, but now they're entering the environment around the other kids with the baggage, right? So we're looking at a diverse group of children amongst each other, picking up each other's habits, picking up each other's mentalities. So as a Black boy, what are the things that are missing in the identity to kind of keep them focused on, this is the agenda for me? Because my agenda may be different than Sally's agenda, may be different than Billy's agenda. They're not going to walk into the world with the same challenges that I may walk into the world with. So how do we speak to what's missing in these Black boys today? Elder Owen, Reverend Dr. AJ Rama, Dr. Ford, jump in, please.
Okay. Well,
He's muted.
Muted, Elder Owen.
I'm muted. I'm
Here
sorry.
we go.
In the Bahamas, I mentored a group of young boys. And matter of fact, Dr. Cleveland Enos was one of my speakers at one time. And I also established something called Career Club Bahamas, where we would get young boys and put them in a setting where they can see other men achieving and having successful careers, so that it can help them understand that they too can reach for these types of successes in their lives. But so many of these boys, they have no clue what it is to be a boy. A lot of them are coming from homes where they're raised by mothers who are doing the best they can. So they're in an environment where there are little to no father figures, male energy, to be transferred to the young boy to help him to understand that identity of self, that confidence in being a boy, what it means to be a boy. And when we don't control our narrative, when we rely on others to educate us and tell us what our children should be according to their perspectives, we set ourselves up for failure. We have to get to a place where our children are educated by us. We have to now create the environments that are safe, where there's no bullying, where there's no molestation, where children have an opportunity to thrive because they are being taught by someone who understands them, who understands in particular that boys are educated differently from girls, that young boys don't need to be sedated or put on medication because they're hyperactive or they're perceived to be active and therefore diagnosed. We need to understand that Black boys learn differently from Black girls. And when we now start to say, we're not going to allow others to educate us anymore or miseducate us, we're going to educate our children the right way and take ownership of it. See, parents are not exempt. It's not okay to just have a child and send them off to someone else to rear. We have to now become very active in the development of our children. And everyone plays a role. You don't have to be a PhD to teach children, you know. We all have experiences. We all have careers and jobs that we have done that we can pass on and teach those other children and young boys in particular. We are all mentors. I have 2 daughters and no sons, but I have a lot of sons that see me as a father figure, a lot of young boys that see me as a father figure. So you don't need to be the biological parent or father to impact the child's life. How many of our young boys have said a coach has changed their life, or a teacher has changed their life, or the uncle around the corner, right? So we have to be very mindful now that this is serious. See, the fun times are over. We have no excuses to say we didn't know, because everywhere around the world we can see the evidence of this. This has to be a system, because how can it be the same condition for our boys no matter where they are on the globe? So there is a system that's oppressing and miseducating our boys and our young people. And we have to now be mindful and say, how do we combat or counter this false indoctrination, education, information that our children are getting, and put them on the path to where in the future we can have a world where our people are now set up for success and can control our own destiny.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in.
Dr. Ford, okay.
Okay, I'm jumping in because you said what's missing.
Mhm.
And part of what's missing is the truth, right?
Mhm.
The truth about our condition. For example, you can pull up anyone, go on your phone, Google. You will see that Black boys are disciplined at a higher rate than Black girls, white boys, white girls.
Mhm.
You will see that teacher bias begins at preschool, that Black preschoolers are expelled at a very high rate. You can go and look at the history. Anybody, go on your phone right now, go to Google, put in the letters DOZIER, school, Florida. That was a state-run institution where Black boys who were orphaned and they were murdered, they were killed. They're still finding bodies, and it was in existence, and it did not close to 2011. So Black boys, this has been going on a long time. And so when I say what's missing is the truth, that means that educating parents, right, about the state and the condition that we're putting our Black boys in when it comes to education and the systems that are being ran. We're talking about, in addition to that, there's no Black teachers. Here in the United States, Black teachers are, the turnover is ridiculous, and that's intentional. So if you know these things, we have to counter it every day, whether it is creating a charter school, whether it is homeschool, whether it is being part of the PTA. You have to be actively involved when you're sending your children to a PWI. And when I'm saying a PWI, I'm not just talking about a predominantly white institution based off of the numbers. I'm talking about predominantly white institution as far as the curriculum and the mentality and the attitudes that they will encounter when they know already that racial socialization and identity is important.
Mhm.
So I am just saying, what is missing? We have to tell the truth.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Varma?
Well, let me just add to, if I can, what everyone has said. Everything that all of us have said so far is 100% correct. But I also believe that we can add to that list of things that are missing. Sitting with young Black boys and letting them know that they're right, that what they're seeing is right.
Mm.
You know, if we, and I've done this before with my children or daughters and sons, right? And said, what's going on? What's bothering you? Oh, the teachers, it's boring. You're right, it is boring. The teachers don't like me. That's true. They don't like you. You know, because sometimes the most difficult thing is you can see, and it doesn't matter if it's a Black teacher, because there's Black teachers that don't like Black kids. In the Caribbean and in America and Africa, there's teachers that just don't like students. They're not happy with their life. That you just remind them of a former student. You remind them of a student that bullied them. You're too light, you're too dark, you're a girl, you're a boy, whatever. They don't like me. Okay. Tell me all the things that you don't like. Teachers don't like me. Cool. Teachers don't like you. I'm with you. I've seen this. I've experienced it. The class is boring. Class is boring. Agreed. Because every last one of us remember being in school looking at the clock going, oh my gosh, it's only been 5 minutes. I thought it was 2 hours. I thought we were going to wrap this up. And this is all the way through university, right? How many of us sat in the university classroom going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is an hour and 30-minute lecture. I got to sit through this. It's boring. Information is not exciting. Professor or teacher doesn't like me. The kids don't like me. I don't look good. People are laughing at me. I sometimes just feel so stupid. I don't understand the way they teach. Why they got to teach it this way? Everything that most of these young men are saying, 100% correct. 100%. Nothing wrong with what they just said. In fact, when we tell them, what do you mean all the teachers don't like you? You think you say all the teachers got together and conspired? No, I mean they don't like me. Something about me from day one, everything I've done, everything feels like they're watching me, like they're focused on me. And I can't figure out why. And this happens to girls as well. Now, let's figure out why they don't like you. I'm not going to tell you they don't like you when you're going in there for 7-8 hours a day and you can feel they don't like you. Maybe you're too tall, you're too short, maybe you got an attitude, maybe because if we can figure out why they don't like you, we could either adjust if it's a Black or white teacher to a certain type of way you carry yourself or certain type of way you might have to speak or where you might have to sit in the classroom or who you might have to sit away from just to get through this next 6 months, 8 months, year. Because they're not going to be with you for the rest of your life. But I'm not going to tell you that during the time period while you are dealing with them and feeling disrespected, not liked, not appreciated, don't look good, teacher calls you stupid, they never call on me when I raise my hand, all of these things. If this is what the child is feeling, don't tell them it's not real.
That's right.
Figure out why is it real.
Right.
Right.
Now, once we do that, you'll see the child sit back. The young man or young woman will sit back because now they go, oh, because see, part of the misdiagnosis that Elder Owen spoke of is we as parents sometimes are misdiagnosing because we're telling a kid who's saying this teacher does not like me that their feelings are wrong.
You're invalid, right?
The same kid that we told before we send them to school, if anybody bothers you, you tell me.
Right.
And if you tell me, I'll always have your back. Dad, mom, teacher don't like me. What do you mean they don't like you? Because you're being different. But you just said
What did you do?
Back. So now you done told me I can't trust you because you said I got your back, and you did have my back. Now I could be gaming, but let's always start on the side of the child might be in the right.
Yeah.
For this feeling. Now I can't change that teacher's feelings towards you, but I can change how you interact with that teacher. We can reposition you in the classroom. We can change your seat. You know, people say, well, what if the teacher says, I'm not changing your seat? My glasses won't be coming in for another few weeks. Is it possible I could be moved to a closer location? I can't see the board.
Now they have to.
They have to move you.
Yes.
If I'm not paying attention and you call on me, instead of me looking crazy, is it possible you may please repeat yourself? At the distance at which I'm sitting, I was unable to properly hear you. They don't have to like what you just said, but
But they have to accept.
I can't hear you.
Mhm.
Right.
We can reposition you. Now, once we get the children to bear witness that somebody hears them, because every last one of us who've been in school know that these were feelings we had at some point or another. Whether they didn't like me, it's boring, why we got to learn this. You ask the question, why are we learning this? They can't articulate it in real terms, in real life, on how we're going to use it. Boom. Now, once we do that, now we adjust and say to the same student, okay, now you know I got your back. Now you know I don't think you're misdiagnosed. Like they say, black men are the most misdiagnosed, and white men. White men are misdiagnosed, as Dr. Ford misdiagnosed as paranoid,
PTSD.
Depressant. Mhm.
PTSD,
And black men
are
psychotic.
misdiagnosed as psychotic, when black men are really suffering from PTSD and white men are really suffering from psychosis. This is their own medical field that's saying this. So, but the misdiagnosis of the black man doesn't begin when he's a man. It begins when we as parents are telling them that what they see and feel. Don't tell me I'm facing microaggressions at work as an adult, but my daughter and son is not facing macroaggressions at school.
Exactly.
It doesn't. The microaggressions doesn't begin at the job.
No.
For a black professor to commit suicide as the head of dean or head of a university, she wasn't weak. She couldn't not get along. No, but the aggressions were piled on over 10, 20, 30, 40 years of mental subjugation, and finally the person snaps. And then the suicide rates go up. Okay, so once we get the children to understand that, then we say what to them? Now, this is the way we're going to have to position ourselves. Yes, I want to get you into a charter school. Yes, I want to homeschool you. Yes, and some parents, some of the mothers and aunties and grandmamas and uncles and dads that's listening, yes, we can do some of that, definitely, as my fellow panelists have said. But what about those of us who can't? Well, let me first start by, how can we navigate? Tell me about Miss Fortuna. Tell me about Miss Carol. Tell me about Miss Jenkins. What is she like? What does she look like? What does she wear? Does she wear perfume? Does she dress nice? Do you think she cute? You think she ugly? Because then we can tell you how to deal with the ugly person. Because some people been told they were ugly so long they act ugly. So you might come in the room and say, "You're looking really nice today, ma'am." Like, "Oh, thank you." Ain't nobody told her she looked nice in 100 years. We can shift. We're getting children all these skills to survive, but we're not preparing on how to navigate when the aggression, because the aggression gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The baby lion is taught what to do when you see the hyena.
Mm-hmm.
Where you go, the baby wild African dogs, what do they do when another apex predator is in the area? But we're not telling them, we're just sending them to school and trusting this environment. Now, once we do that, then we got to shift the conversation. Once they begin to start to listen, then we shift it and say, now, can I tell you some things that you really may not like?
Mm.
You know, the clothes that you don't want to wear from your big brother because they're hand-me-downs. And you know the uniform you may not like because you want to wear what you want to wear. You know, there's a place that, you know, as you get older, where they got to wear that uniform. And they got to wear hand-me-downs. And I don't want you to go to that place, because it's a place called prison, where every day or every so many days, all your sheets go into a washing machine and you got to share somebody else's bed sheet from whatever they was doing with it or about it a few days or hours earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You gotta wear that prisoner uniform that somebody else wore, number 17, 32, 34, 72, 79, whatever their number was. You gotta wear that, and it may not fit you. You know those. You know you couldn't wear the non-cool sneakers. Yeah, those non-cool sneakers you don't like. Well, you know, in prison, a lot of the people there have to wear the non-cool skips with no shoelaces. Mm-hmm. You know, and you got to kind of. That's the extreme, right? Because we're going from the extreme of what they're going through to the extreme of what they could face. And once you can set parameters for a child's mind between those two extremes, we have to get the young boys to see what the two extremes are. You take the mind apart to put it back together. African system of education put the extremes so the child sees what the two extremes are. Yes, everything you're feeling and seeing, 95% of it is 100% right. Some of it's your imagination. We can have the discussion and figure out which part's the imagination, but 95% of it is correct. Some of that 95%, we might be able to shift 50%. Of the remaining 45%, you're going to have to navigate it with the understanding that it's not forever. The old African proverb, or the old African universal law of this too shall pass. And how do you survive it, thrive through it, and allow it to pass and not become your irreality? Don't let the irreality of the moment become your reality in life. And so that I think if we can kind of touch it in that way, but we don't misdiagnose your child and tell them what she's going through is wrong. Don't tell them that the teacher likes him. Go meet the teacher and look him in the eye and get a feel. Then you'll find out. Black, white, green, blue. Find out. Don't tell the kid that, because I'm telling you straight. You could be I was the best student, all the A's and there were teachers that still didn't like me. They didn't like the fact that I was the best student.
Right.
They didn't like the fact that I asked questions that they weren't, in the syllabus, that wasn't in the pre-described system, so they didn't have an answer, and they thought I was making them look stupid. So we be careful. We don't misdiagnose our boys and girls. Tell them what you feel is real. Let's determine how it's real. Let's take it apart. Let's reposition you in the environment, whatever the condition. You can come to mom or dad. We can reposition you, and then through repositioning you, then we bring you to the other extreme of what could be out there, and then say, what do these two things, where's the apex, where do they meet? And that's when you start to introduce the culture.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Varma. So we're going to turn the heat up a little bit right here, because exactly what you say in this moment is going to be a clip that these young boys are going to hear, right? And I'm asking this because I've said that to my son as well. You know what? Yes, she may be racist. Let's say she is racist. And let's say she does want you to fail. Are you going to allow her to be right? Are you going to fail, or are you going to prove her wrong? But how do we get these young boys to have that chip on their shoulder, and not arrogance in such a way as it's over exaggerated, but get that chip on their shoulder for them to walk through that door like, I am a proud Nubian male and I'm gonna kill it. How do we get them to understand who they are in such a way that they walk around with their heads high, wanting to be the best, wanting to do the best, wanting to prove everyone wrong, so that they can raise up to that level? What do we have to say to them?
We have to teach them.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Buster.
You can't speak to the intelligence. That's the problem. I think we're making a mistake. We're trying to speak to their intelligence. You got to speak to them the way the music that they listen to speaks to them. What is it that they want? Hey, you know those girls you want? Yeah, they don't like dummies. You know that cute girl you're looking at? They don't like dummies. You know the cars you want to drive? They're not cheap. Let's talk reality, right? A 13-year-old boy, most women don't know this, I'm gonna break a secret, but most boys walk around with their book bags in their hand, not because they don't know how to put the book bags over their shoulder. Okay, progressive boys are walking around with the book bag in their hand because they're covering up something, because they're seeing something that's stimulating something inside of their something.
That's right, the Washington Monument.
Boys say, it's not like why these boys don't know how to put the book bags over their shoulders? They do. So let's speak to that which we said in our culture: mind is the activator, sex is the motivator. Your desire to be with the opposite sex in our culture will drive you. So I'm going to speak to you. You like girls? Please don't tell me you like boys, right? But different discussion. You like girls? Yes. All right. You want girls to like you? Yes. Here's what it's going to do. And I'm telling you that as a person whose mother said it to him. I came home crying, bawling. The girls said I was too dark, blah, blah, blah. My mom said, I'm going to do develop your brain. Develop your brain, and the women will chase you. They will run after you. I believed her. Well, it wasn't the only reason I did it, but it was a motivating factor to develop.
Right.
No, we'll talk. We'll talk. So
That's
you got to
good.
speak the language of the child.
Yeah.
Tell them you like being up there making the speeches. You like feeling when people, because when people, everybody start clapping for you. Don't that feel good? Yeah. You want more of that feeling? Yeah. Then you got to excel in something. You have to excel academically. Now you may not want to go to college. But you're gonna have to get a trade. A trade school's good. You can become a plumber, HVAC, electrician. Yeah, we all want doctor, lawyer, engineer, and those are great because that's established steam, and we need that. But but all those doctors and lawyers and engineers, they need mechanics, they need pilots, they need
electricians,
culinary sciences, they need people, seamstresses, they need tailors. I'm not going to take my daughter and make you go to college. You want to go to cosmetology school? We got you. But by the time you finish that school, 2 years, we're going to take some of that college money and build you your own little hair care. What do they call it? Not boutique.
Salon.
So I have no hair. That's why I don't know the meaning, right? A salon. And we're going to make sure you go. No, that's real.
Yes.
Again, repositioning the child doesn't just mean in the classroom. You got to reposition them outside the classroom. If we keep thinking the same mode, yes, some children are doctor, lawyer, engineer. You can push them and they'll become that, and we applaud and we need that. I have some of those. But then some children are the hands-on child. They're great at carpentry. So let's develop them into a developer. They're great at cooking food. Let's create the next culinary sciences, or the next Chan can cook, or the chopped. Let them go and win that. We are stifling their growth, especially the boys, and we keep saying, "Oh, these boys are hard-headed," but we are raising them.
Right.
So, Elder Owen, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to say that's a great point, and I think that's the great foundation. But these boys need to see success from people that look like them. You see, one of the things we did in the Career Club in the Bahamas is we have field days. One of the first field trips we did was taking these young boys to the airport, to a private airstrip, where they were able to see a black pilot. They were able to hear from a black pilot, to understand what it takes to be successful as a pilot. They were able to sit in the plane. They were able to touch the instruments. We have to show them a successful plumber, successful electricians. All of these individuals that are successful will now say to that young black boy, you too can become successful, because they have seen an example of success in their life. Many of these children have never seen it. We are asking them to buy into something that they cannot readily identify with. So when we show them, and that's why mentorship and volunteering to work with young boys is so important, because we have the ability to touch their lives and to move them by 1 degree. Our way of life teaches us that we can just shift ourselves by 1 degree for a better outcome. And now when we start to show them their greatness in history, what did our people invent? What did black men invent? Who are black leaders that shaped the world? Who are black theologians and black writers and black authors and black musicians that gave our people music of inspiration and hope and love, not the bad music? So we have to show them real examples. We have to now put them in the environment where men are there in successful roles, talking to them. They're on the job, working with them for 2 weeks. They're working with an electrician. They're working with a plumber. They're working with an air conditioning guy. They're out there working with these individuals in fields that they think they have some interest in. And it's okay for them to move to different fields, to do internships and summer jobs until they find the one that resonates with them, and now they can zero in. But we have to show them black men successfully executing those roles so that they too understand who they are, what they can become, and they can look at the great ancestors and leaders that came before them to understand that we've always been great. Mm-hmm. And that greatness is also, and that potential is also within each one of our black sons.
Mm-hmm. And I want to jump in here really quickly, and I still want Dr. Cleveland Aeneas to speak on it, and Dr. Ford as well. But you touched on a point, which is exactly where I wanted to go, is, these children do have to see. They can't become what they don't see. But sometimes I think of it now, especially with the guidance of Basesh, just showing the reality of, we wait until the child is 12, 13, 14, whatever age, and we want this miracle to happen that we did not instill in them from the beginning. These children were raised up until whatever age, and they weren't given the proper growth. They weren't given when you're growing things in a garden, is there's certain nutrients that plant needs, a certain the sunlight, the water, certain nutrients it needs to grow. And if you don't give it everything it needs to grow, but then you're just expecting it to miraculously pop up in the summertime, and you have this garden full of just tomatoes and peppers, and it's like you didn't plant for that. So I realized that, but then myself, people close to me that I have conversations with, and that they ask me, like, what can I do? And I'm like, well, were we the example at every point in every stage in their development, not just in the last X amount of years, but how are we the example now? Because we can put these children in environments where they're learning and they're around Black engineers and Black mechanics and yes, but do they see you showing the example of that type of success? So I wanted to ask you all about the turnaround, right? The turnaround stage for single moms, the turnaround stage for single dads, for parents who did not set that example, and then the turnaround stage also for the child, because we know all is not lost, right? So at the point where the child may feel or may start to come to the realization that I can do this, or the parent may say, man, I can do this. I do have to start teaching them different. Everything that I've done is not indicative of who I am or my academic abilities, but now I want change. What can we do at that point for the parents? How can they use this information, the single moms, and for the children as well?
Well, I feel like we have to really zone in to the reality that this mindset of what we want to accomplish, it starts at home. We can talk about institutions and systems outside of the home all day, but the reality of what we're shaping as far as our children are concerned, it begins at home. So whatever we want them to see and whatever we want them to ultimately manifest, the home is the point zero or the starting point, and the school or the church and the environment should be an extension of the home. I say that because my father and mother did an excellent job, I feel, of always making us aware that these are our principles at home. Yes, there are rules at school. Yes, there's a social order at church or what have you. But never forget what you learned at home. Never forget what you talk about, that chip on the shoulder. Never forget what we discussed at home. What is our agenda at home? Yes, you're going to go out here. You're going to get a good education. You're going to make friends. You're going to have fun, etc. But understand that this education that you're going to receive is supposed to ultimately serve your community, serve your family. You're not going out here to get this education so that you can just leave everybody and forget who you are and pretend that you're somebody else. You're not going out here to take on the values and the mores and the nuances of other people and forget who you are. The same way others have done for themselves, and this is important to show the young boys as well. Look at how other people have been able to build institutions for themselves that ultimately serve them. Too often we teach our children that we're supposed to complain because somebody who's built something for themselves don't want to bring us into it, as opposed to actually teaching them and teaching ourselves we can build our own institutions whereby we don't have to ask anybody to be a part of it. We can be as successful as anybody else because we've done it before. We did it before any of these so-called successful people ever existed on the planet. And so if we don't understand first and foremost that we have an agenda at home that we can build now this agenda at home, and this is what Dr. Varma was saying earlier, when you get to that point where you can introduce the culture,
Mhm.
that culture has to be everywhere in your house. That
Mhm.
culture has to be everywhere in your etiquettes. When you sit down to eat as a family, when you go to bed as a family, how you clean up the house as a family, how you go outside to play as a family. You understand? That's where the foundation of it, and you're rooted in that at the home level, so that anywhere you go, your default is whatever happened at home. Because the obstacles, I tell my children, I cannot baby proof the world. So I have to world proof you.
Mhm.
You understand?
Mhm.
I gotta
Excellent.
we gotta make sure that the children are world proof because we cannot baby proof the world. I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Sis, you had Sister Azanda, you had asked about like mothers and the sons and things like that. And one of the things from a counseling perspective, because I deal with parents, and when you have a conversation about what's going on here and having a conversation with parents about you can reparent yourself and you can reparent your child. You can always start over, right? Part of that reparenting, what Kahun Uncle just mentioned was the representation matters. But also you have to teach stories about resilience, right? About the ability to bounce back through adversity, right? So I have to give a lot of homework assignments, a lot of education because we just don't know. And so parents, people do better once they know. So we have to address the level of ignorance that we have, not ignorance as in just ignoring, just I was never taught. And so we can do that. One of the best examples of a school that I know that actually teaches the students and the parents is the LeBron James I Promise program. And in that program, he also has parenting classes where he has the parents that attend the university, attend the school, they have to make a recommitment to their own education and their own schooling because he's like, you're the first example. And so they get receive GED classes, literacy classes, interview skills, because it's like it's you can't just, teach the child, you have to also upgrade the parents, right? So there's a couple of different things you do. When you're talking to a parent, one, I always use Google, use the computer, and show it. When you present information like this is the issue, this is what we're working with, but here's also one of the solutions because it's not an instant oatmeal. And having and encouraging both the child and the parent to be patient with themselves as they grow into this new knowledge of culture, into this new knowledge of self, into this new knowledge of what racism exists, but we can actually counter it. And we don't have to just accept it. It could be something as simple as I know people have seen, for example, TikToks when you see mothers with their sons in front of the mirrors doing, we say, I am maxims, I am affirmations. Or, you could pick up different books by Eugenie Eugene, you do Perkins or Amos Wilson, right? He often talks a lot about Black boys and he often talks about, I want to say it is reactive masculinity, right? In which, instead of helping our young boys just develop their mind, it's more so about the sex and be like, oh, what do I need to do to get this type of girl? What do I need to do? And he's like, we need to create environments, rites of passage programs, getting back into little leagues and softball games and doing those small everyday things. So I'm saying to mothers specifically, catch your son being good. One of the biggest things that our sons don't hear is because we've been conditioned to use a lot of negative reinforcers. We don't praise when they're doing well. when they're being excellent. And so I often tell parents, hey, get a calendar, start on day one. And every time he signs, I said my affirmations, I read my black books, right? I found out about some historical figures who, had to go through the same things, whether it's like Mandela or even who are the latest black scientists. I found out something black that's important today. And you check it. And then you create a jar. And every time you do something that affirms your blackness, put a quarter in, put 50 cents in, put $1 in. And then at the end of the month, take that money and you all reward yourself as a family by saying, we are building up, right? Our black culture, not just our black culture, but implementing what it looks like in everyday, in our day-to-day, activities. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Excellent. Sister Zandi, if I may, I just would like to add something here. What is so important is that when a parent, a single mother, or a two-parent home, when that decision is made, when they make that decision that they have to change the way they're raising their son, that's a very important day, a very powerful day. That's the day that turns your life around. You draw that line in the sand and say, there has to be another way of doing this. Now, that can become very overwhelming. A family can say, I don't know what to do next. That's why the culture that Kahunanku spoke about is so important. We weren't designed to raise our children on our own. That's not our way. We have to now align ourselves with communities, organizations, philosophies that speak to us, that resonate with us, so that we can now put the children in an environment where they can benefit from a group approach. See, we always try to do everything on our own. We don't want no one to know our dirt. We don't want no one to know our struggles. We want to feel like we got everything all figured out, and we know we got a mess at home. So we have to get back to where we find support in that group. We are taught in this organization that everything we need to know is within our midst, is within reach, because we have individuals from all types of backgrounds and experiences that we can draw on for every situation we're faced with. We are taught that we are co-creators, meaning we can, with mindfulness, create the environment for our children to be successful. And some of our children, like Belinda just said, are in environments at home where there's no parent there to make that decision, that draw that line in the sand moment. And that's why we have to be mindful with mentorship. We have to be our neighbor's keeper. We have to recognize those children in that home that are being neglected. And as men, we have to step up. And if mothers or women see and know a little boy, a young boy in a community, in a home that's not good for it, that's not being reared correctly, we have to say, this is an organization. I'm going to go to them. They have strong men within that community. I'm going to tell that gentleman in that community that there's a little boy in my neighborhood. He's suffering. He's hurting. He's crying out for male mentorship. He's crying out for positive reinforcement. He's crying out for masculine energy that directs him in the right way, so that that gentleman, that organization can now reach out to that family, that mother that may not even recognize their son is hurting. They're so busy trying to survive and pay the bills and keep the light on and put food on the table. They have no energy. They have no willpower. They have no desire or know-how to pour into the development of that child in the right way. So we have to now align ourselves with institutions like this. I don't know much institutions out there right now that are having this conversation about Black boys. And this is the type of institution you need to align with. You need to get in contact with us so that we can now start to see how can we put our fingerprints in the lives of our children, our Black boys, so that we have a future that they can be a part of as co-creators and not just on our knees at the mercy of others who rule us. No, we want to get up off our knees and we want to move forward and develop the kind of lives that we deserve.
Thank you. I was looking for the clapping hands on the screen, but we're just going to clap. We're going to clap. Thank you very much. So due to time, I'm going to ask you all individual questions, and then if there's any questions in the chat, we'll take a couple minutes and take those if possible, and we'll end it for today. I know we had a late start. So, and if there's anything that you feel needs to be said that we didn't mention, also feel free to add that in as well. How do we ensure we are raising men and not boys? And everything that we said, we're taking into consideration, right? It's been touched on, everything's been touched on, but how do we definitively say, okay, we don't want to raise a generation of boys that haven't been really properly grown to be men? How can we ensure that? Anyone can take it, and we'll pass the next question.
Well, I think that, matter of fact, I don't think, I know. Black people, we have to recognize and not allow ourselves to start to, you know how they say, act new, right? Act like we don't know better. From pre-slavery, during slavery, after slavery, all the way through the 60s, we knew how to raise men. For hundreds of thousands of years, we knew how to raise men. We knew how to raise women, ladies. And then all of a sudden, in the last 50 years or so, from 1970 down to today, all of a sudden, we all trying to, how's we going to raise these boys? I don't know how to raise a girl. Lord knows I try. Come on. We go back to go forward. What did grandma and great grandma in the 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s and 60s, what did they do to bring forth? There was no such thing as we can't find a good man. Good men was everywhere. But the difference is, and this is something Elder Owen was stressing and saying, all of those generations had civic order. They had societies. They were Elks. They were Masons. They were in the church. They were in the mosque. They were in the synagogue. They were coaching. They did Little League. They had community. Someone asked the question, what about the young boy or girl who doesn't have these conditions at home? Home is where the heart is. So the child has to put their mind, some children, LeBron James didn't have a home. He didn't have a home to be in. They were homeless. But he put his mind into that basketball court. The gentleman who gifted hands, Ben Carson, he was living in a home when mom was on drugs and was upside down, became one of the greatest brain surgeons. The other part politically is a different discussion, right? But the greatest brain surgeons ever. Performed the first surgeries on conjoined twins because he was able to reposition home. It doesn't have to be the environment inside the home. Home is the environment in here because there's kids that got everything in the home and the parents are 100% involved and they got a mama and a daddy, but in here the disease is taken. So if we can get children into a position teaching the children who might see this, grandma might see that the child's home ain't right, but grandma can't come in there and fight the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law. But grandma can send this video and say, here's some, baby, I just want you to watch this on your phone. Come watch this with Nana. And say to the child, you can reposition. Life gives us the strength to readjust, to readapt, and reposition. Readjust, readapt, reposition. You can readjust your life. You can readapt your life. And then you can reposition your life. Everyone has that. As long as you're over age 5, you can make that determination because you can go in that refrigerator when you're told no. You can disagree, you can disobey, you can obey or obey. So when we're talking to parents and we're saying to people, what is it that they need to do? Very simple. Tell the young, well, can't say simple, but something that we can all do. Takes one to make one. So I say to the single moms, stop trying to make one on your own. I say to the single dads, you got a daughter, stop trying to make a lady on your own. You can teach her certain things. Mom can teach the son certain things. But we said this during Love Lies Liberation 2-3 years ago now. I think it was year 2. We said, where there is no black man and black woman, there is no black love. Where there is no black love, there is no black child. Where there is no black child, there's no black future. So talking to these young boys, we got to also say to them sometimes, hey, I know I'm not with your mama. Hey, I know I'm not with your dad. Your dad loves you very much. Your mom loves you very much. We're not in the position where we like being around each other, but that's us. That's going to happen. However, when it comes to my interaction with you as mother or my interaction with you as father, I'm never going to speak ill of them. I'm just going to show you the best of me, because mom put 23 in you and I put 23 in you. I can't speak to mom's 23. Mom going to have to do that, but I can speak to my 23. Here's the crazy, right? 21 out of the 23, that number 21, he crazy. Number 19, number 16, she was for them streets, right? And I can run through all of these and say, these are the 23 I gave you. Now let's try to get those 23 to be the best of themselves, to shift you, reposition you, readjust you, and direct your life in a way. We've got to be able to have that conversation. But raising boys, we're not going to succeed at raising strong black men and strong black women if we don't go back before we go forward. We keep talking about going forward. But you can't go forward if you don't go back. We've got to go back. We've got to adjust back to those ancient indigenous principles of the Caribbean, of the Americas, of the African continent. Go back to go forward. Go back and figure out what did they do. Because we had a generations of Malcolm X's. We had a generation of Elijah Muhammad. We had a generation of Marcus Garvey. They had a generations of Amy Jacques Garvey. We had black excellence. And then all of a sudden, we just what happened? We forgot the way, because we thought we can do progression without culture. We can put the culture down, we can put the spiritual down, we can put the Bible down, we can put the Quran down. Now I'm talking about the Bible from African eyes. I'm talking about the Quran from African eyes. I ain't talking about some Arab doctrine or European ideology. Using Bible, Quran, or Vedas, or Upanishads, or using Egyptology, or using Moorish doctrine, whatever the doctrine, that's for the adults to decide which doctrine. But in that doctrine, the original followers of Noble Drew Ali, Baba Noble Drew Ali of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, were they behaving like some of the brothers and sisters that are Moors today? Nope. The original followers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Bibi Clara Muhammad and the most honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, are there some brothers of the Nation of Islam that ain't quite acting right, and some sisters who acclaim the doctrine but don't claim the discipline? Yup. And we can keep going through black organizations. So we've got to say, no, the answer is there. It's not a conundrum. It's not like well, wow, I can't believe black kids are losing. Of course, we're losing our black boys and girls because we've lost our black men and women. We've lost ourselves.
That's right.
Nobody took it. Oh, the white man. Okay, that works if there was no Garvey. That works if there's no Elijah Muhammad. That works if there's no Martin Luther King. That works if there's no Coretta Scott King. That works if there's no Malcolm X. That works if there's no Van Sertima. That works if there's no Dr. Ben. That works if there's no Dr. Clark. That works if there's no Marimba Annie. That works if there's no Shahrazad Ali. That works if there's no Dr. Clonora Hudson Weems. That works if there's no Francis Cress Wilson. That works if there's no Schomburg. That works, and we can keep saying, but yet all of those people did come.
That's right.
Works if there's no Amos Wilson. But all of these people came, and they gave us what works. They gave us the difference is we don't have respect for those who were sent to us.
Black excellence. That's
Come
right.
on.
They came, they gave us the formula, and we rejected.
Yep.
Scripture says, the stone the builder refuses will be the great cornerstone. We're refusing guidance. We suffer for lack of knowledge. The fool a fool despises wisdom. So we as adults, we gotta admit that we despise wisdom. We want to pick the piece. We want the W off the wisdom. We leave the isdom on. We just draw the wool and we grab that and we run with it in the conscious community, in the religious community. But if we can get back to the wisdom of the old folk, but they had commitment. See, black folks, we many of us as adults, we suffer from commitment issues. And I don't mean commitment in a relationship between a man and a woman. I can't be committed to you if I'm not already committed to something that taught me what commitment looks like. If you get with a man and he's not committed to something that's already showing him what he's supposed to be and how he's supposed to be it, he'll never be able to commit to you because you ain't no principle. You're just a person. A woman can't commit to me. She has to commit to that which I've shown committed to. But that's old school. That's old scriptures. That's old ways. Adam was supposed to teach Eve, and Eve was supposed to rear this, or you want to talk Muhammad or whatever your doctrine, old school, the man and the woman, they were in order. So in this discussion of these black boys, we got to get back to order. And the order of the day, we need mother, we need father. There's single
Those
mothers.
rules.
We got to get these single mothers with some single fathers or single mothers in some relationships with whatever way, polygamy, I don't know who got what going on, but we better get back to something and stop acting like we don't know nothing better.
That's right. Yes. So I hope you're prepared to come back and have a Love Lives conversation with us. Okay. So that's a perfect proposal. All right. So last questions for you, Dr. Ford, then we'll pass it to Cajon Uncle and Elder Owen. First, I'm sorry, Cajon Uncle, what realities will these boys face entering the world without this consciousness, without the skills? Basesh mentioned prison. He mentioned you won't get no girls, right? He mentioned certain things. But what, not as a black boy just with no skills facing the world, but the survival. What does surviving look like for a black boy who does not have this information, who does not have this consciousness, and who does not obtain these skills and mindset? What does that look like for him?
Well, you said it. It looks like survival. They won't thrive. The goal is not to just survive. The goal is to thrive. The goal is to actually control our destiny, not just be in the world and be somebody's battery. I often see, here in the Bahamas, and I'm sure it's the same around the world, people are celebrated because they become the CEO of this company or the managing director of this company, and I'm not knocking that, right? But at the back of in my mind, I'm thinking, but that's not our company. That company is an international company that has a subsidiary here in the Bahamas, and you're running it, but you can't pass it on to your children. When you finish being the managing director or the CEO or whatever you are, they're going to just put somebody else there. So you become a battery in a system that wasn't designed for you to actually control it. You become that which is serving a system as opposed to having a system serve you. So what it looks like for any young boy or young girl going out into this system without the proper knowledge is exactly what Dr. Varma just said. We ignore the actual wisdom and the knowledge that was actually brought here for us, and we run after that which we were told is supposed to be for us, when in truth, we're only being taught, we're only being taught to worship this image of this beast. We're only being taught to value the values of the beast, the actual systems that have been created to oppress us. So without the knowledge of the culture, because as Basesh said earlier, Dr. Varma said earlier, you got people who have the quote unquote perfect home and the perfect families, but they have no use to their people. They are of more use to a society that doesn't care for them more than they are to their own people. We got to stop looking at organizations and institutions that have been around for 100 years or 200 years because they had a head start, right? When you ripped us away from our indigenous lands or you flipped us on our head, and you started your institutions, and now you're 100, 200, 300 years in. And when we start our institutions, we got to look at where those institutions were when they started and stop comparing the 300, 400-year-old institution to the 14, 15, 20-year-old institution and understand that we have to build again. We have to respect the fact that Marcus Garvey didn't just start out with millions of members, that he actually had to build. We have to start understand that all of the greats that we actually look up to had to start somewhere. And we now want to be the greats for the children that are coming. So we have to now say, when we send these children out here, first of all, we got to make sure we know it. We got to make sure we become it, and then be the example of it, and then show that it works so that the children see that it works and they want to emulate it and then use it to build something that's going to serve us. Got to get back to respecting, loving, honoring us. Otherwise, you're just a battery surviving. That's it.
Yes. Thank you. We said a few times today, you know, you got to know who you are. You know, you can't go in there not knowing who you are. And Dr. Varma, a lot of us mentioned the Bibis and Babas. You said Marcus Moshe Garvey. You said Baba Elijah Muhammad. You said Bibi Clara Muhammad. You said all of these names. But for a Black boy who has never heard those names, yes, my individual, you know, how I was raised as an individual in my household plays a factor into who I am. But as an African, as a Black boy, who am I? Taking the readings from all these Bibis and Babas you mentioned, if I didn't know them, Elder Owen, speaking to a Black boy, who am I as a Black boy? Who am I?
The question is directed to me?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, see, the thing is, no Black boy would know who they are unless they have to be told who they are. You see, we cannot allow others to tell us how great we are. When history has shown, their track record has shown what we mean to them and how they treat us. So we can't go to someone that has mistreated us, miseducated us, taken advantage of us, stolen our resources, enslaved us, subjugated us, and set up themselves as the deities for us to worship and follow. We can't go to them for them to tell us our greatness. We have to tell our greatness. So it is incumbent upon us. We are responsible for the mess of tomorrow. Every one of us right now is responsible for the conditions of our children in the future. We have to get into the game. We have to stop sitting on the sidelines complaining and grumbling, because if you're not working assiduously to solve the problem, then you are part of the problem. You have no right to say anything because you are not in the fight to change it. So we have to now intentionally say, I am going to sow this knowledge of self into others. We have to get our boys and teach them how to be young men by first identifying and letting them know who they are, their greatness, their potential, their heritage. We have to teach them what is their role. What is the role of a boy and a man? I want my daughters to marry a good man, but we have to make sure that that good man exists. So we have to help to rear the husbands for our daughters and the leaders of tomorrow and the protectors of our families and those that are going to provide the structure, the personality, the spirit of the family has to be set by the father, that male figure. But we have to now understand that no more can we leave our Black boys to the wolves to be reared. No longer are we going to let rap artists and these people that are just doing a bunch of crazy raise our children, and that's who they're aspiring to be. We want our young men to be individuals that are going to change the future. They're going to change the conditions of our people. They're going to stand up like Marcus Garvey and say, no more, you are great. Get up, you mighty people, right? And that's what we have to do. But we have to be committed and mindful that I have a role to play. This isn't someone else's responsibility. This is your responsibility and my responsibility. We have to get involved. We have to get active, and we have to be intentional with sowing the seed of self into our boys so that they know who they are. They can see greatness in people that look like them. They can see greatness in their heroes from the islands that they were born on, the cities that they came from, people that came from similar backgrounds. Let them see a Black man that survived it and thrived and that shaped the world through their contributions. But if you and I don't get involved, then we do our children and future generations a disservice, because we can stand today because of those great names that Dr. Varma mentioned. They stood up. They have a backbone. We have a backbone for a reason. The backbone is to stand. So let's stand up. Let's take control of our own narrative, and let's be the change we want to see our boys have.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. Dr. Ford, for Black boys who are coming to a sense of identity of who they are, but they don't know what it is that they want to do. Sometimes we ask them what they want to do, and they're just like, I don't know. Elder Owen mentioned putting them around different people in different fields that look like you. What would you advise for Black boys who just don't know what they want?
Field trips via mom and dad, lots of exposure. One of the things that's important in this conversation as we talk about boyhood, everything's interconnected. And one of the things that's important is that words matter, sounds matter, and we have to make our children understand that they're divine, right? That there is a soul, a force, a genetic line that they come from. But in order to do that, you have to be connected, right, to a culture. One of the reasons why, the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, we're always talking about a unifying doctrine, right? Unification that allows a person to be in any walk of life, right? Whether you're Islamic, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Christian, regardless of the specific path you are walking spiritually, the one thing that we have in common is something's going on with our Black boys. 2, there used to be a time where we have to be gender affirming. If you haven't noticed on TikTok, there's been a lot of Black boys wearing nail polish, right? And so when we're talking about what's going on with our Black boys in the classroom, we're also talking about the effeminization of boys, right? And how that even transcends over into manhood. There was letters that Martin Luther King wrote back when he was in jail in Birmingham. And he would talk about how him and his dad were pulled over in Georgia by a white cop. And the cop came, tapped on the window, knock, knock, what you doing, boy? And his father turned and said to the police officer, I'm a man. My son, Martin, he's a boy. So you need to come correct, right? And so when we talk about Black boys and that term boy, we always have to remember that that is one of the terms that has been used across the globe, that Black men under racism, white supremacy, you're never too old enough to age out of. And melanin recessive people, right? They're never too young to get it tossed in their direction. And so we have to be mindful of creating spaces that allow boys to see different careers, to go to different spaces, good, bad, up or down. Sometimes you got to put your child in the car and be like, we driving to the hood. We about to go see your cousin. So you can know what this looks like. You might have to have conversations about the school to prison industrial complex and actually go visit a jail and be like, this is a jail. This is real. This is a cemetery. This is real, where you're showing them both. But you also, you have to be connected to a community, an organization, a group of people that's going to speak life into your sons, into our daughters. I'm saying this as a woman. And Today, I attended a graduation, and I'm just looking at how many women are passing, and the number of Black men that were actually at the university, at the college level, it was so small. It was so small. Out of 1,300 students, it was so small. So we have to start picking both and creating family dynamics and creating spaces where, hey, your son likes good, Hollywood movies. We going to Hollywood. This is where they make this stuff up. This is a studio. All this is make believe, right? You want to know something about space? We going to NASA. Jump in the car. Let's go. You want to know something about trees? We could go to the backyard, nature's first classroom. And so we have to be involved and get back to that principle of micro schools. Micro school is when you just have a classroom, maybe 10 students, 15 students. It might be in your kitchen. It might be your son's friends. And you all that spot, and y'all up in there, and y'all go grab some frogs, and like we dissecting frogs today. Y'all might go ahead and get some feet, some burners, and hey, everybody, we about to learn how to make sloppy joe tonight, right? And so we have to get back as women, we have to remember we're the first teachers. And so on a spiritual level, that means that our sons will end up picking women that look like us. And so we have to be responsible for implementing those things into so they can be exposed to this is spirituality. This is my way of life. On a professional level, my mom go to work day. This is what it is. You on the side. This is what it is to drive a truck. This is what it is to drive Uber. This is what it is to work at Dunkin' Donuts. So we have to remember that we can do it in love, because at the end of the day, we want our boys to be disciplined. Not disciplined according to how they use it, which is punishment, but discipline as an ego to learn and being able to analyze the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, and because of every aspect of their lives.
Thank you. So I want to thank you all, all the speakers that came onto the Vantage Point today and answered the questions. I know we had some in the chat, but I think you all answered it in your explanation. So thank you so much. And sis, you made such a valid point with the Bring Your Child to Work Day, because now we use it as a free pass out of school and just leave the child at home and you go to work. So really take your child to work. And if you don't feel as though your work is anything worth bringing them to, then do better. Do something better that you'll be proud to bring your child to work, proud to bring your child to the job, not just, sign off that they came with you and leave them at home. So we got to do a little bit better and be a better example. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Dr. Cleveland Ennis III, Dr. Nicole Ford, Dr. Elder Owen Burroughs, and Reverend Dr. A.J. Varma of today. The final message here today is parents, be the example. Stop getting mad at our boys don't get frustrated with them without first getting frustrated at yourself. Because if you show them that you've made mistakes, but you can change, then they will understand that they too can change. So we have to be the example for our children. We have to keep our children involved in what we do. This is my Bring My Child to Work Day. So we have to keep them involved in what it is that we're doing so they can see the greatness and they can become great through our example. So thank you all for tuning in to the Vantage Point today. I'm your host, Azandi Malinki, and this has been the Vantage Point, your conscious podcast. You all be blessed, and we'll see you next week.